An expert on political violence and terrorism research says that the need to step up security at places of worship should be based on the threat level. In an interview with my colleague Glenda Chong on News Tonight, he was also asked to comment on the significance of the first Singaporean detained in relation to the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Back in 1974, during the Laju hijack, the Japanese Red Army and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine terrorists hijacked the Laju ferry going to Pulau Bukom. So in our own history, we have had terrorist incidents which featured elements of the Israel-Palestinian conflict as well. And also back in 2000, in the year 2000, there was an incident where a 12-year-old Palestinian boy was killed in a crossfire between the Israeli Defense Forces and Palestinian fighters. And that particular incident had a major radicalizing effect and impact around the world amongst Islamist extremist groups, certainly in Southeast Asia, amongst Jamaah Islamiyah elements as well. So the Israel-Palestinian conflict has always been in the background. So as an analyst, I'm not that surprised that it has popped up again. So yes, it is an element of concern, but we should keep our eye on this as well.
Yeah, so Minister Shanmugam has said that, security measures, they will have to be stepped up at religious side, but it will also depend on the level of threat they face and the balance of not turning these places of worship into fortresses. So what measures can we expect to see, and what are some of the challenges?
I would imagine that the public would be encouraged to avail themselves of the resources available on the SG Secure website and the SG Secure app to just find out information, like, for example, what is the current threat level, what kinds of suspicious physical behavior we should be looking out for, and what to do in an emergency. I mean, we have heard of run, hide, and tell. Well, these general elements are very relevant still. But more specifically, I agree with what the Minister was saying. I don't think we should have a one-size-fits-all approach for all places of worship in Singapore, because not all places of worship are equally iconic. They would not be perceived as equally iconic to any militant groups. So it's best to take a risk-based approach to determining the level of protection, additional protection and security needed for particular places of worship, and what elements of site hardening need to be done on a case-by-case basis based on good community information and intelligence from the security agencies.
There has been a number of previous arrests of this nature involving young people. Are youths particularly vulnerable? Are they a particularly vulnerable group to self-radicalization?
Well, as we know, Glenda, not just youth, but a lot of older people have been radicalized as well. In general, when we talk about pathways to radicalization, terrorism scholars like Mark Sageman talk about the influence of factors such as kinship, friendship, worship, discipleship. So these are common pathways to radicalization, and that affects all ages. But having said that, you're right. When you talk about youth psychology, I think most psychologists and even neuroscientists would say that young brains, they're still developing. So young people tend to be idealistic, impulsive. They're always looking for just causes to champion, some major injustice to correct. So this idealism and this energy, this desire to do good has to be channeled in more constructive directions through systematic programs. Some terrorism scholars, that's why they say that, youth do not know how to be moderate because, they have all that energy and all that idealism. So the question is how to give them some major project to sort of channel all the energies in a constructive way. So that will be the challenge. But so to some extent, yes, youth are particularly vulnerable, which is why terrorist groups, on whether they're far right or extremist Islamists, do try to target young people for recruitment.
In this particular case, the radicalized person's immediate family and those in his social circle, they were unaware of his plans. So are there specific signs or warning triggers that, one should look out for?
Yeah, that's a very pertinent question. Well, I would say that the first important thing to note would be whether or not the individual in question seems to have a a lot of interest in extremist material, whether it's online or in print, and also his attitude towards members of other groups. I mean, does he always tend to have negative things to say about members of other groups? Does he have a very strong us and them kind of thinking, very binary worldview? And also importantly, sometimes in his social media posts, does he or she let slip that he wishes he could go overseas and fight in a foreign conflict, and when ultimately, if the person lets slip that the only solution is violence, then well, these are some of the telltale indicators that perhaps this person needs to be counseled.